A destitute girl clutches a tattered cloth and inquires of the billionaire, "Would you consider employing me? I'm seeking employment to purchase milk for my brother." His response transformed her existence. The winds roared with a ferocity reminiscent of untamed creatures that night. The rain pounded relentlessly against the windows of the Calloway mansion, which stood majestically on a hill, surveying the city below. As the tempest transformed the streets into torrents and drove everyone to find refuge, Henry Calloway remained engrossed in contracts within his private office, unaware of the turmoil raging beyond his walls. At 52, Henry had crafted a formidable empire. His name resonated with authority, held in high regard within the financial elite nationwide. His sharp features, perpetually adorned with a solemn demeanor, seldom revealed a grin. Indeed, it was rare for anyone to remember the last instance he displayed anything other than a measured detachment or restrained annoyance. "Would you care for another cup of coffee, sir?" inquired Wilson, his butler of more than 2 decades, and possibly the sole individual who understood even a fraction of the complexities beneath that inscrutable man. "Absolutely. Be sure to verify that all the windows are securely closed. The tempest shows no signs of abating in the near future." Wilson nodded and departed quietly, just as he always did. Henry focused once more on the numbers displayed on his screen, carefully adjusting the reading glasses he reserved solely for detailed tasks. The grandfather clock mounted on the wall indicated it was 10:47 in the evening. On evenings such as this, he favored staying up late to focus on his craft. The stillness of the vacant mansion mirrored the isolation he had embraced as his steadfast companion throughout the years. At that moment, a gentle, nearly undetectable sound drifted into his awareness. Initially, he believed it was merely the tempest, but before long, he came to understand its true nature. Soft taps echoed, hesitant and fragile, as if the one knocking wished to remain unnoticed. Henry scowled. Who could possibly arrive at his doorstep on a night such as this? His phone remained silent, offering no indication of any impending visitors, and he had no expectations of anyone arriving. He believed Wilson would take care of it, redirecting his focus to the papers before him. However, his focus had been disrupted. Strangely enough, those soft, hesitant knocks unsettled him far more than the booming thunder that had just rattled the walls. He rose and made his way down the central corridor, the sound of his steps softened by the Persian rug he had brought back from one of his journeys to Asia. As he ascended the final steps of the staircase that led to the foyer, he caught sight of Wilson as he opened the door. The wind swept through, carrying the fragrance of impending rain and a sharp chill, and it was in that moment that Henry caught sight of her. A young girl, perhaps 8 years old, drenched completely. Her hair, likely a shade of brown when dry, appeared nearly black, slicked against her fair complexion. In her tiny hands, flushed from the chill, she grasped a tattered cleaning rag, while beside her, nearly obscured by her legs, a baby swathed in rags trembled incessantly. "Are you considering bringing me on board?" The girl's voice rang out clearly, even with her bluish lips. "I require employment to purchase milk for my brother." Wilson glanced upwards, looking for direction from his employer. Henry made his way down the stairs with deliberate slowness, his gaze locked on the small creature that had the audacity to interrupt his evening. "Her role is serious, young lady," he stated, adopting the same tone he used for rejecting poor proposals in professional discussions. The girl stood her ground. In contrast, she raised her chin just a bit, revealing a dignity that was unsettling for someone so petite and fragile. And then it occurred. Their eyes locked, and something within the depths of that child's brown gaze broke through the defenses Henry had constructed around his heart. A sudden recollection surged through his thoughts, a different set of eyes, mirroring these, shutting for eternity in a hospital room. Sarah, his little sister. The similarity was disquieting, the identical resolute expression, the same unspoken bravery in the face of what was to come. Sarah had been precisely the same age when illness claimed her, a malady that no amount of his family's wealth could remedy. Henry sensed a slight tremor in his hands. He tightened his hands into fists, striving to cast aside the memory he had hidden for so long. "Excuse me, sir." Wilson's voice pulled him from his thoughts, grounding him in the moment. Henry found himself frozen on the stairs, gazing at the girl in silence. "Mr. Calloway is currently not in the position to hire," Wilson started to articulate, with a gentleness that his boss never exhibited. Henry made his way down the final steps. The girl observed him, her heart a blend of yearning and acceptance. He realized then that she was not merely drenched, she was famished. The sunken cheeks and frail frame whispered a tale her dignity sought to conceal. "May I ask what your name is?" Henry astonished himself by inquiring. "Emily," she replied, "and this is Noah, my sibling." The infant coughed, a feeble, damp noise that prompted Emily to secure the rags around him even tighter. Henry dismissed the intrusive thought and instinctively dug into his pocket for some cash. He had a knack for addressing issues through financial means. A handful of invoices, and his mind would be at ease. He could delve back into his contracts and figures, yet Emily shook her head at the sight of his impending actions. "I don't want charity," she stated with unexpected conviction. "I desire to engage in work." Her words reverberated through the foyer, striking a profound chord within Henry's thoughts. The rejection of money, an occurrence so rare in his existence, rendered him momentarily at a loss for words. "Task? What skills do you possess?" The inquiry emerged softer than he had meant it to be. "I am capable of scrubbing the floor." Emily lifted the tattered cloth she clutched. "I am capable of washing dishes and making beds," and I quickly grasped new concepts. Henry experienced a tightness in his throat. He could perceive Sarah within her. Sarah, who was never afforded the opportunity to mature. Sarah, with a passion for planting flowers in the garden of the mansion from their childhood, often expressed her dream of becoming a doctor one day to help people like herself. What was it about this unfamiliar child that impacted him so deeply? He had mastered the art of overlooking the destitution around him, skillfully avoiding the pleas of those in need, and entrusting acts of kindness to his aides through discreet contributions. It became more manageable to confront human suffering when it was merely numbers, devoid of identities, particularly not one that resembled Sarah's so closely. His logical mind started enumerating all the reasons he ought to tell Wilson to hand the girl some cash and close the door. Protection, accountability, disruption, his precious time. Ultimately, what would he do with a pair of children? His mansion was not a suitable environment for children. He surveyed his surroundings. His head of security had quietly emerged in the hallway, vigilant to the peculiar circumstances. The housekeeper glanced in from the kitchen entrance. They all anticipated his predictable response, to brush off the girl with a hollow kindness, yet a deep-seated feeling within him, one that had lain dormant for ages, held him back. "Step inside," he declared, catching everyone off guard, himself included. Emily paused, disbelief washing over her at the words that had just reached her ears. "Hurry up and come inside before you both end up with pneumonia," Henry urged, a hint of impatience veiling his own uncertainty about this choice. Wilson swiftly retrieved a few towels from a nearby cabinet as Henry guided the children indoors. Emily moved with precision, creating tiny splashes on the immaculate marble surface beneath her feet. The mansion's warmth wrapped around the three of them instantly, a startling contrast to the harsh chill of the storm outside. Henry observed Emily as she took in her surroundings, her eyes growing wide at the opulence enveloping her, the shimmering crystal chandeliers, the exquisite artwork adorning the walls, and the antique furniture that spoke of history and value. To a child who had only experienced struggle, it must have appeared as if it were plucked straight from the pages of a fairy tale. "Mrs. Parker will take care of you," Henry said, gesturing towards the housekeeper. "Provide them with a warm bath, fresh clothes, and the nourishment they require." Mrs. Parker, a woman of middle age with a serious demeanor yet warm eyes, nodded and extended her hand to Emily. The girl, however, did not accept it immediately. "Are you truly going to offer me a job?" she inquired, holding her brother even closer. Henry sensed the weight of everyone's gaze upon him, a primal urge urging him to retreat, to establish firm boundaries, to steer clear of entanglements. Yet, A different aspect of his being, one he believed had faded away, urged him toward an alternate path. "We'll take care of that later," he replied, sidestepping a straightforward commitment. "At this moment, it's essential for you both to find warmth and enjoy a meal." Emily acquiesced, at last taking Mrs. Parker's hand. As she ascended the stairs, Henry observed that she clung tightly to the worn rag. The tattered fabric appeared to hold significance beyond its mere function as a cleaning implement. It stood as a testament to her resolve, a reflection of her grace. "If I may, sir," Wilson began, his concern evident in the face of the unusual situation. "Not now, Wilson," Henry interrupted, his gaze fixed on the stairs where the children had vanished. "Whip up a warm dish, something easy to make. I question whether an empty stomach can manage anything overly elaborate." Wilson nodded and departed, leaving Henry to grapple with his own reflections. He strolled to the closest window, observing the tempest that continued to unleash its fury beyond the glass. In that very city, there existed the origin of those children. In a place so dire that it compelled a young girl to face the downpour, cradling an infant, not in search of refuge, but in pursuit of a livelihood. After an hour, Henry found himself back in his office, struggling to focus on his tasks. His thoughts wandered back to the children. Mrs. Parker had informed him that they had already taken a bath, donned the clean clothes they had discovered, and consumed a modest soup. The infant, she remarked, felt warm to the touch, yet appeared frail and perhaps unwell. A gentle rap on the door broke the silence of his contemplation. "Come in," he said, anticipating Wilson's arrival with news. However, it was Emily who emerged, clad in oversized pajamas that unmistakably seemed to belong to a member of the staff. Her hair, freshly washed, revealed its true brown hue, cascading in soft curls around her shoulders. "Could we have a conversation?" she inquired, her assurance standing in stark contrast to her delicate circumstances. Henry gestured toward the chair positioned before his desk. Emily settled into her seat, her feet hovering just above the ground. She started with gratitude, expressing her appreciation for the food and the clothes. "Noah has already drifted off to sleep. He invariably feels fatigued following a meal." "From where did you two arrive, Emily?" Henry inquired straightforwardly. The girl cast her gaze downward for a brief moment, as though she were selecting her words with great care. She explained that our parents had passed away 6 months ago. Collision on the road. A social worker assigned us to a shelter, but it was a terrible experience. The older kids assaulted Noah and took our food. Henry experienced a sudden and intense wave of frustration at the mere idea. "So we fled," Emily continued. "In an abandoned building, I stumbled upon a vacant basement. A man selling newspapers on the corner occasionally allowed me to take shelter there, particularly during heavy rain. He was the one who suggested I could seek employment in the grand estates up on the hill." She articulated her thoughts with the poise of someone far beyond her years, shaped by circumstances to embrace a world of grown-up responsibilities. Henry understood that she had likely been forced to mature at an accelerated pace in recent weeks. "What is the situation with the baby? How have you been able to keep him fed all this time?" Emily pressed her lips together, a hint of uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "At times, I earned a few dollars by tidying up the bakery's sidewalk. At times, when she paused, I simply gathered what I required from the dumpsters behind grocery stores." Henry felt a wave of unease wash over him. The sight of that child sifting through trash to provide for her brother was nearly unbearable. "What stopped you from seeking assistance?" "The city offers various social services. They would have kept us apart," Emily replied without hesitation. "I overheard the conversation among the social workers. Noah is petite. Infants find homes more readily. I assured our parents that I would look after him." Henry was profoundly moved by the resolve in her voice. He recalled the vow he made to Sarah on her deathbed, that he would live fully for both of them, that he would achieve remarkable things. A commitment that propelled him to create his financial empire, yet simultaneously drained his ability to forge human connections along the way. "Do you really believe you can be part of this place?" he inquired, steering the conversation back to the initial subject. "I am capable." Emily adjusted her posture in the chair. "I possess great strength and have a knack for rapid learning. In my previous school, prior to all the events that unfolded, I held the position of the highest achieving student." In her eyes, Henry saw a glimmer of brilliance that he couldn't overlook, reminiscent of the very same glimmer that Sarah possessed. Emily's narrative resonated profoundly within him. It wasn't merely her physical resemblance to Sarah that unsettled him, but the intriguing blend of delicacy and resilience she exhibited. She was petite and defenseless, yet displayed unwavering resolve to safeguard her brother. Henry came to the understanding that he stood at a pivotal juncture. He could proceed as he usually did, offering some detached assistance, perhaps locating a suitable orphanage for the children, making a substantial contribution, and then continuing on his way. Or he could take a step he hadn't taken in decades, allowing someone to enter his secluded realm. "For the time being, you may remain here," he finally stated, "until we discover an appropriate resolution." Emily's face brightened, yet Henry lifted his hand to moderate her enthusiasm. "That doesn't imply I'm bringing you on board. You're young, and your place is in school, not in the workforce. However, during your stay, I anticipate that you will adhere to the house rules." Emily nodded with enthusiasm. "Absolutely, sir. I assure you, it will be worth your while." As she walked away, Henry sat in silence for what felt like an eternity, reflecting on the choices he had just made. After many years, possibly even decades, he experienced a sensation that had nothing to do with wealth or influence. Empathy, a feeling he believed he had laid to rest alongside his sister. Outside, the storm was starting to wane, yet within Henry, a fresh tempest was just taking shape. A tempest of buried feelings surged forth, stirred by a young girl who tapped on his door during a downpour. Unbeknownst to him, that evening would herald the beginning of a significant change in his existence, a path that would guide him to reclaim aspects of himself he thought were gone for good. "The blue room will suffice," Henry instructed his butler as they ascended the mansion's majestic staircase. "It offers plenty of room and includes that extra bed we can utilize for the baby." Wilson acknowledged, keeping his employer's directives firmly in mind. "I will request Mrs. Parker to prepare everything immediately. Regarding the children's clothing, have someone pick up whatever they require in the morning," Henry interjected. "This evening, let's make do with our resources and reach out to Dr. Collins to inquire about the baby at the earliest opportunity. He appears unwell." The butler paused, uncertainty flickering across his face. "Excuse me, may I inquire about the duration of the children's stay?" Henry halted in the corridor, gazing at a painting adorning the wall, a depiction of the rural home where he cherished summers as a child alongside Sarah. It was a straightforward inquiry, yet he found himself without a response. After a long pause, he finally spoke, his words drifting into ambiguity. After a few hours had passed, Emily found herself perched nervously on the edge of the expansive canopy bed in the blue room. Her gaze meticulously examined every nuance. The wallpaper adorned with clouds, the reading chair positioned by the window, the plush carpet beneath her feet, and the petite crib that the staff had brought in for Noah. Everything felt almost surreal. Mrs. Parker completed the task of arranging clothing into the dresser. "These should suffice for the time being. Tomorrow, we will have suitable attire for both of you." Emily ran her fingers over the gentle texture of the pajamas she wore, a stark contrast to the coarse, tattered garments she was accustomed to. "What's the duration of our stay?" The housekeeper regarded her with a gentle yet elusive gaze. "That hinges on Mr. Calloway, but let's not concern ourselves with that at the moment. Take a break. Your younger sibling is peacefully resting." Indeed, Noah lay in a deep slumber in the makeshift crib, swathed in fresh, soft linens, his face reflecting a tranquility Emily hadn't witnessed in months. As the door clicked shut, sealing her in with her slumbering brother, Emily found it impossible to settle down immediately. She strolled to the window, observing the rain as it began to diminish. Beyond lay the unforgiving realm she was familiar with. Endless dread, insatiable appetite, utter powerlessness. What was this, in here? Is it a provisional refuge? A snare? The opulence surrounding her both frightened and fascinated her in equal measure. She sensed she was an outsider in a realm that didn't belong to her, and her past had taught her that joy seldom endured. Don't get used to it, she whispered to herself, a refrain that had become a familiar companion in her recent months of solitude. By tomorrow, everything might come to an end. The following morning, Henry sat in his office, savoring his customary coffee, when Wilson entered with the news. The boy was examined by Dr. Collins. He is experiencing a mild respiratory infection, though it is not serious. He suggested antibiotics and advised incorporating more nutritious meals into the diet. The girl remained steadfast, unwilling to exit the room until she had confirmation that her brother was safe. Henry acknowledged the information, taking it in with a calm demeanor. She inquired whether she could begin working right away. Wilson continued, a hint of amusement lacing his voice. He maintained that she wishes to cover the cost of your hospitality. Henry lifted his gaze from the screen of his digital newspaper. Task? She hardly touches the kitchen table. Nevertheless, she appears quite resolute. This morning, Mrs. Parker discovered her attempting to make her own bed. She performed remarkably well for someone so young. Henry returned to his papers, indicating that the discussion had come to a close. However, once Wilson departed, he discovered that concentrating was beyond his reach. The vision of young Emily carefully arranging a bed far larger than herself stayed with him. For the next 3 days, Henry intentionally steered clear of the children. He concentrated on his meetings, treated his office as a sacred refuge, and accepted invitations to dine out for social obligations he would typically have turned down. He reassured himself that this was the simpler path, maintaining a distance, ensuring those children wouldn't disrupt the carefully arranged structure of his existence. However, that didn't imply he ceased his observations of them. From the vantage of the mansion's security cameras, which he subtly monitored on his tablet, he observed Emily in the garden, frolicking with the carefree spirit of a child experiencing joy for the very first time. He watched as she stumbled upon the ornamental fountain, captivated for an entire afternoon by the vibrant fish swimming within. He observed how she, even during times of enjoyment, always kept her brother within her line of vision. According to the reports from Wilson and Mrs. Parker, he discovered that Noah was making progress, showing more color in his cheeks and exhibiting increased energy. He also found out that Emily had stumbled upon the library and was astonished by the sheer volume of books. Wilson shared that she mentioned her old school's library only had that many books in the movies. On the afternoon of the 4th day, Henry's self-imposed solitude was suddenly pierced by the delightful sound of a child's laughter resonating through the mansion. A pure, sparkling laugh that felt out of place in the stark surroundings. Compelled by his inquisitive nature, Henry ventured toward the sound, arriving at the sunroom, an infrequently utilized glass-enclosed retreat. Peering through the ajar door, he caught sight of Emily on the floor, engaged in play with Noah. She had constructed a cozy fortress of cushions, and the baby, now more aware and with rosy cheeks, clapped and chattered joyfully. "And here comes the dragon," Emily declared with flair, as she maneuvered a plush dinosaur that must have been a gift from someone. "Yet the valiant knight shall rescue the princess." Henry observed quietly, hidden from view, as she crafted an imaginative realm for her brother, utilizing the plush cushions and decorative pieces around her as essential elements of the scene. The play possessed a certain simplicity that stood in stark contrast to the room's sophistication. Wilson emerged quietly beside him. He noted in a hushed tone that she had been radiating that energy since the moment she rose. "It's the first time I've truly witnessed her embrace her inner child since she got here." Henry took his time before responding. There was an undeniable pull to that scene, yet it also stirred a sense of unease within him. Emily's laughter, reminiscent of Sarah's, unearthed memories he had buried for decades. He remembered the fantastical games he played with his sister, the vivid realms they conjured before the illness took it all away. They require suitable toys, he finally remarked, moving away from the door, along with clothes that truly fit them, and children's books. Make sure it's taken care of. Wilson nodded, concealing a faint smile. I have already taken the initiative to order a few essential items, sir. They are set to arrive today. Henry made his way back to his office, attempting to regain his concentration on the tasks at hand. Yet the vision of those children at play lingered in his thoughts, vivid and striking against a backdrop of muted shades. The once tranquil and orderly mansion now echoed with unfamiliar sounds. Joyful sounds of mirth. The sporadic weeping. The soft thud of little feet scurrying through the corridors. Initially, those noises vexed him, disrupting the solemn tranquility he had nurtured over the years. Yet, over time, he started to look forward to them, paying careful attention when the silence came back. It was as if those sounds were somehow infusing a sense of humanity into the opulent tomb that his residence had turned into. 7 days passed. On a notably bright afternoon, Henry chose to engage in his work on the terrace, an activity he seldom pursued. As he pored over the quarterly financial reports, his gaze drifted to the garden, where he spotted Emily in the distance. With a gentle grip on Noah's hand, she guided him as he took small, tentative steps across the grass. 1, 2, 3, she meticulously counted. Believe in yourself, Noah. The infant giggled, teetering yet consistently upheld by his sibling. The scene was utterly ordinary, a familiar moment shared between siblings, yet it carried a profound emotional weight in this particular setting. The gardener, engaged in tending to a nearby flower bed, drew closer and spoke, though Henry couldn't quite catch the words. Emily replied, and before long, all three were crouched down, scrutinizing something on the earth. With a gentle smile, the gardener presented Emily with a small trowel, guiding her through the process of digging a hole. He then retrieved a small pouch from his pocket, gently pouring what appeared to be seeds into the girl's palm. Henry observed, captivated by the effortless charm with which Emily captivated those around her. The gardener, a solemn figure who had been in Henry's employ for many years and seldom spoke to him, was now beaming, instructing the girl on the art of planting flowers. That scene evoked a deep, unnameable feeling within Henry. It wasn't precisely jealousy, but rather a reflection on how he had distanced himself in his realm of commerce and calculations, forfeiting the capacity to create straightforward, authentic relationships. That evening, breaking from his typical habits, Henry chose to dine at home. The dining room table, crafted to accommodate 20 for grand occasions, appeared ridiculously oversized for a single, solitary figure. Usually, it didn't trouble him, but this evening it seemed more apparent. Wilson, he called, have the kids already had their meal? Indeed, Mrs. Parker attends to them promptly, just as you requested. Henry cast a glance at his plate, pausing for a moment. Beginning tomorrow, they will be able to join me for dinner. Wilson was taken aback. As you desire, my lord. The following day, when Emily and Noah learned they would be dining with the owner of the house, their responses were a blend of excitement and apprehension. Noah, still too young to understand the significance, just banged on the high chair that had been set up for him. Emily, in contrast, appeared to be quite uneasy. What happens if I accidentally make a mess? So many different utensils exist, she admitted to Mrs. Parker, while the woman styled her hair. There's no need for concern, my dear. Simply embrace who you are. The dining room, adorned with a grand chandelier and vintage furnishings, filled Emily with a sense of unease. As Henry walked in, she adjusted her stance, striving to project an air of maturity, just as she consistently did whenever she sought to command respect. Good evening, Henry said, taking his place at the head of the table. I trust you are at ease. Emily nodded, feeling uncertain about her next move. The stillness that ensued was punctuated solely by the soft clatter of utensils and Noah's intermittent chatter. Today, I spotted you in the garden, Henry finally ventured, attempting to spark a conversation. What did you sow with Mikhail? Emily's eyes sparkled with excitement at the question. Daisies. Mr. McHale noted their rapid growth and resilience, even in adverse conditions. Much like you, Henry made an offhand comment, catching himself off guard with his own words. Emily offered a timid smile. He allowed me to select the location for planting them. I placed them by the fountain, visible from our window. Henry contemplated their window. She had already claimed that space as her own, her sanctuary. That ought to have troubled him. Ultimately, this was meant to be a short-term situation, wasn't it? Yet, oddly enough, it did not. Are you fond of flowers? He inquired, recalling how fond Sarah had been of the garden. Emily nodded with great enthusiasm. In our old apartment, my mom maintained a modest garden, with just a few pots on the balcony, yet she tended to them with daily devotion. It was the initial occasion that Emily brought up her parents. Henry came to understand that while he was aware they were orphans, he had never genuinely contemplated the implications of that reality for them, particularly for Emily, who was mature enough to grasp the depth of their loss. Your mother likely had a talent for nurturing plants. Emily beamed at the recollection. She often remarked that plants resemble individuals. They require nurturing, understanding, and a secure environment to flourish. Henry experienced a sharp ache in his chest. The profound insight of that statement, uttered by a child who had experienced great loss, touched him profoundly. The remainder of the dinner unfolded with greater ease. Emily inquired about the artwork adorning the walls, the destinations Henry had explored, and the volumes lining the library shelves. Her questions, while innocent, revealed a depth of insight, showcasing a genuine curiosity that Henry seldom encountered in grown-ups. In the days that ensued, sharing meals evolved into a cherished routine. Henry started to anticipate those moments, crafting potential topics to engage Emily, pondering tales he could recount that would capture her interest. He found it astonishing how effortlessly they engaged in conversation, even with the significant gap in age and life experience. One afternoon, as Henry toiled away in his office, a gentle knock echoed through the room. The knock lacked the assurance of Wilson or Mrs. Parker. "Step inside," he invited, intrigued. Emily eased the door open, her movements tentative, as if gauging her true invitation into the space beyond. "I apologize for interrupting you, Mr. Calloway." "What is it, Emily?" he inquired, placing the papers he had been examining to the side. She paused, concealing something behind her back. "I created something just for you. I appreciate all that you've done." She presented him with a vibrant drawing on colored paper. The mansion was illustrated in a straightforward manner, featuring stick figures of Henry, Emily, Noah, Wilson, and Mrs. Parker, all joined together in front of the house. At the top, in meticulously crafted yet somewhat irregular letters, it proclaimed, "Our family." Henry handled the drawing with care, treating it as though it were a precious artifact. A tempest of feelings engulfed him. Astonishment, unease, a comforting sensation in his heart that had long been absent. He contemplated the notion of family. It was a term that had faded from his understanding since the passing of his parents and Sarah. A term he steered clear of, along with the emotional ties it suggested. "It's truly lovely, Emily," he finally managed to express. "Thanks a lot." The smile she offered him was so luminous, it appeared to illuminate the whole stark office. "Is there anything I can assist you with?" she inquired, glancing at the pile of documents on his desk. "I excel at organizing. In class, the instructor frequently requested that I organize the library in the classroom." The proposal was so sincere that Henry found it impossible to turn it down entirely. He mentioned, in a spontaneous manner, that you might assist me in sorting these catalogs by color. "Are you able to accomplish that?" Emily nodded with a gravity that suggested she had just been entrusted with a crucial task. Henry sorted through a collection of art and antique furniture catalogs, all perfectly innocuous, and demonstrated the arrangement he envisioned. The task was straightforward, perhaps even trivial, yet Emily's fervor in tackling it filled Henry with an unexpected sense of satisfaction. In the quiet corner of the office, she meticulously sorted the catalogs into vibrant, color-coded piles, while Henry observed her from a distance, his gaze lingering with a mix of curiosity and admiration. Her determination was palpable, each movement imbued with a seriousness that bordered on the comical for someone of her stature, yet it resonated with a profound depth. She was determined to demonstrate her value, to illustrate that she had earned her place. What Emily failed to see was that she had already accomplished more than sufficient. She returned to the Calloway mansion with a long-lost treasure that had eluded its halls for decades. Existence. In the weeks that followed, subtle yet important shifts occurred in the mansion's daily rhythm. Henry's office, previously a realm only Wilson could enter, now welcomed frequent visits from Emily, who arrived with drawings, little treasures from the garden, or just to engage in conversation. Noah is now on the mend and becoming increasingly lively with each passing day. Navigated the house with an unquenchable thirst for discovery, eliciting smiles from even the most stoic staff members. The house, which used to feel like a flawless yet empty museum, now had toys strewn across the floor, vibrant drawings affixed to the refrigerator, and the ever-present sounds of tiny footsteps and joyful laughter echoing through the rooms. Henry continued to grapple with the deepening bond forming inside him. He reassured himself that he was simply meeting a moral duty, that a fitting home for the children would soon be found, and that his life would eventually resume its usual course. Yet, every time Emily invited him to admire a freshly bloomed flower in the garden, or when Noah took his first steps and the world erupted in celebration as if it were a monumental feat, something within him shifted. One morning, Henry found himself roused from sleep earlier than he typically would have been by a stir of activity within the house. He stepped out of his room to explore the commotion and discovered staff members hurrying about, with Mrs. Parker appearing quite distressed. What transpired? He inquired, his own alarm evident. The housekeeper explained that it's Noah. He vanished from the bedroom. Emily is in a state of panic, searching high and low. Henry sensed a tightness in his chest. Mobilize everyone to search, inspect every nook and cranny of the house and the surrounding area, immediately. He took it upon himself to join the search, meticulously examining every possible hiding spot where a baby could be concealed or, even more concerning, come to harm. The mansion, filled with countless rooms, winding stairs, and secret corners, now appeared as a perilous maze for a young child. It was Wilson who ultimately discovered Noah, nestled comfortably beneath Henry's desk, embracing a teddy bear in serene slumber. Upon Henry's arrival, he found Emily kneeling next to her brother, tears of relief cascading down her cheeks. "He's fine," she murmured. "I'm puzzled about how he managed to escape from his crib. I was meant to keep an eye on him." In that moment, she appeared delicate and exposed, shouldering a burden far too great for her tender age. Henry sensed a fracture within himself. Instinctively, he dropped to one knee beside her, gently resting a hand on her shoulder. "It wasn't your fault," he murmured gently. "Children engage in behaviors like this. It's impossible to keep an eye on him at all times." Emily gazed at him, taken aback by the unexpected touch and the warmth in his tone. "Yet, I made a vow to look after him." "And you are looking after him," Henry reassured her. "Superior to the performance of numerous adults. Now, you don't have to face it by yourself any longer." Their words, uttered almost without thought, signaled a significant change in the dynamics of their relationship. For the first time, Henry acknowledged, albeit subtly, his readiness to take on shared responsibility for the children, indicating that they were no longer isolated in the world. For Emily, it felt like a tremendous burden had been removed from her delicate frame. For Henry, it was a definitive move towards something he had evaded for years, emotional commitment. That evening, Henry found himself in solitude within his office, his gaze fixed on the drawing by Emily, now elegantly framed and resting on his desk. "Our family," behold the whimsical title. Kin. A term he had concealed alongside Sarah. A term that conveyed fragility, the chance of suffering and heartache. Yet now that term was starting to take on a different significance. A fresh start awaits. An opportunity to repair what had been fractured long ago, not only in the lives of the children but in his own life too. Henry rose from his seat and approached the window, gazing out at the garden where Emily's daisies had started to emerge. As she had mentioned, echoing her mother's wisdom, plants, much like individuals, require nurturing, time, and a secure environment to flourish. Perhaps, he mused, that notion extended beyond just Emily and Noah, but also encompassed his own experience. Perhaps he, too, required a journey of rediscovery, a chance to create room in his life for pursuits that extend beyond mere commerce and the pursuit of riches. A transformation was underway, quiet but unmistakable. Despite his efforts to fight it, Henry understood within himself that his life was irrevocably altered. Obscured by shadows, the moon remained unseen. The hospital loomed larger and more foreboding in Henry's memory, its endless corridors twisting and turning as he hurried through them. His heart raced, fueled by an urgent need to reach his destination swiftly. With each step, room 307 seemed to drift further into the distance. "Sarah," he called, but his voice came out muted, as if submerged beneath the waves. "Sarah, I am on my way." As he approached the door to the room, his hands shook with such intensity that he struggled to grasp the knob. Within the room, he discovered the bed unoccupied, the pristine white sheets perfectly arranged, as though no one had ever rested upon them. "You arrived too late," the nurse said suddenly, standing by his side. She was anticipating your arrival. Henry turned to face her, but she was no longer a nurse, she was Emily, her accusatory eyes piercing through him with an unsettling clarity. "You promised you'd be here," she said, channeling Sarah's voice. Henry awoke abruptly, his heart pounding and breath coming in quick gasps. He settled onto the bed, his hands gliding over his face, sensing the chill of sweat beating on his forehead. The digital clock perched on the nightstand displayed 3:17 a.m. He had dreamed of Sarah before. In the years following her passing, the haunting dreams persisted, each time presenting a different twist on a familiar theme. His inability to arrive on time, his failure to save her, his broken promise to their parents to protect her while they were away. Yet as time passed, the dreams faded, much like the memories that were concealed beneath the weight of relentless work and emotional solitude. Up to this point. Until Emily arrived. Henry rose from his seat and made his way to the window. The evening was serene, the heavens unobstructed and adorned with twinkling stars. The storm clouds from the nightmare remained absent. The moon cast a gentle glow over the garden, where Emily's daisies began to unfurl their petals in the soft night air. He attempted to drift back into slumber, yet the dream troubled him far too profoundly. After 30 minutes of restless shifting, he got up and donned his robe. He had to verify a detail. Or perhaps he simply had to reassure himself that this nightmare, unlike the one from years past, had not materialized into reality. The corridor lay still as he approached the blue room where Emily and Noah rested. In the stillness of night, the mansion exuded a serene calm, as if wrapped in a soothing hush. Yet now, there lingered a distinct quality in the atmosphere, a subtle hint of dormant vitality instead of mere void. The door to the children's room stood slightly open, just as Emily always preferred, anxious that Noah might require something in the night and no one would notice. Henry crept forward, his movements quiet as he glanced through the opening. A star-shaped nightlight emitted a soft, soothing light that filled the room with warmth. On the bed, Emily lay on her side, one arm wrapped around Noah, who had climbed out of his crib and nestled against her, a comforting routine he embraced almost every night now. Her brown hair spread elegantly across the pillow, and her face, usually marked by seriousness and concentration throughout the day, appeared utterly serene in slumber. As Henry stood at the door, he couldn't help but notice the striking resemblance between Emily and Sarah, especially now that Emily's guard was lowered in her peaceful sleep. It wasn't merely the physical similarity, it was something more profound, an elusive essence they both possessed, a resilient spirit, a subtle bravery, a profound ability to care for others with great depth. A gentle warmth stirred within him as he beheld that tranquil vista. The torment of the nightmare started to fade, giving way to a more buoyant, nearly overlooked feeling. Emily adjusted her position, whispering softly and drawing the blanket tighter around Noah. Even in slumber, she kept a vigilant eye on him. Henry withdrew from the door, reluctant to interrupt the tranquility of that moment. Yet, rather than heading back to his room, he found himself drawn to the mansion's attic, a space he had steered clear of for years. The attic was tidy and orderly, much like the rest of the house, yet it carried a sense of neglect that transcended simple dust accumulation. It was a place filled with memories he couldn't confront, yet lacked the bravery to discard. In a shadowed nook beneath a draped beige fabric rested the chest he yearned for. Henry paused briefly, then removed the covering to unveil an aged cedar trunk marked with the initials SC. Inscribed on the cover. Sarah Calloway. With hands that quivered ever so slightly, he lifted the lid of the trunk that had remained untouched for over 20 years. The air was infused with the aroma of cedar, accompanied by a delicate whisper of lavender, the cherished scent his mother loved to keep among her clothes. On top, neatly folded, lay the last dress Sarah wore before she became bedridden, a light blue fabric adorned with small daisies embroidered on the collar, reminiscent of the flowers now blooming in the garden, lovingly planted by another little girl. Henry gently pushed the dress aside, his curiosity driving him to delve deeper into the trunk's contents. Storybooks showed signs of love from constant reading, school notebooks filled with Sarah's tidy script, and an abundance of drawings, each one a burst of creativity. She found solace in drawing, even on her toughest days when the illness took its toll. Within a worn cardboard folder, he discovered photographs. Sarah in the summer garden, adorned with a hat that dwarfs her petite head, Sarah and him crafting a sandcastle by the shore, Sarah extinguishing the candles on her most recent birthday cake, slender yet radiating a joyful smile. Then a photo he had entirely overlooked, showing him and Sarah perched on a garden bench, as he read a book to her. He couldn't remember who captured that photo, maybe it was the housekeeper back then, but he vividly recalled that day, that moment. It was The Secret Garden, the book that Sarah cherished most. Every night, he would read to her during her illness, often revisiting the same chapters time and again, as her affection for the story was boundless. A drop of moisture landed on the photograph. Henry brushed his fingers against his cheek and became aware of the tears streaming down. When was the most recent occasion he shed tears? He found himself unable to recall. After years of evasion, he finally embraced the ache of loss, not just as a haunting recollection to sidestep, but as an integral aspect of his identity, a testament to the influence Sarah had on his journey. With the pain emerged a cascade of memories, the melody of her laughter, the way her nose crinkled in focus while tackling a challenging drawing, and her unwavering kindness, even on her most difficult days. Henry found himself lost in time, seated on the attic floor, enveloped by the echoes of Sarah's memories. As he carefully placed everything back into the trunk, the first light of dawn began to illuminate the world outside. Rather than concealing it once more, he chose to bring along a single item, the tattered edition of The Secret Garden. That morning's breakfast unfolded just like it had in recent weeks, with Henry, Emily, and Noah gathered around the table. Emily enthusiastically assisted her brother with his meal, all the while animatedly discussing the day's upcoming adventures. Mr. Mikhail mentioned that I could assist with trimming the shrubs today, she remarked, slicing the baby's pancake into bite-sized pieces. He will demonstrate the technique for using those unique shears, but exclusively on the more delicate branches. Henry nodded, observing her with a fresh perspective following the night of contemplation. Emily, he interjected, cutting through her stream of thoughts. Are you fond of reading? Emily gazed at him, taken aback by the unforeseen inquiry. I absolutely adore it. During my time at my previous school, I frequently checked out more books from the library than anyone else. She paused, as if contemplating whether to elaborate further. Since my arrival, I've been perusing the books in your library, though they present quite a challenge. I can see why you would feel that way. Henry concurred that the majority are either technical works or literary masterpieces. He set the book he had retrieved from the attic down on the table. I figured you would appreciate this. Emily gazed with intrigue at the tattered edition of The Secret Garden. Does it belong to you? It was my sister's, Henry remarked, a peculiar blend of feelings washing over him as he spoke. At your age, she had already delved into it. Emily's eyes widened in astonishment. A sister is part of your family. She was never brought up. I had, he gently amended. She left this world as a child many years ago. Emily lifted the book with great care, treating it as if it were a treasure, delicate and valuable. Apologies escaped her lips, imbued with a genuine warmth that only the innocence of youth can convey. What was her name again? Sarah. What a lovely name. Emily remarked, turning the brittle pages with care. She paused at a page where a delicate, pressed flower rested, its colors muted yet preserved in time. She preserved flowers within the pages of her books as well. I once did that with the blooms my mother gifted me. Henry offered a subtle smile, reminiscing about Sarah's peculiar habit. Indeed, she found great joy in that activity. She remarked that it preserved the flowers eternally, much like the tales. For the first time, discussing Sarah evoked more than just sorrow. Sharing these memories with Emily brought a sense of warmth, especially as he watched the book his sister cherished so deeply being held by another child who might find joy in it. Following breakfast, Emily made her way to the garden with Noah and her new book, while Henry entered his office, feeling a buoyancy he hadn't felt in years. The workday unfolded with unexpected productivity, as if a weight of forgotten memories had been eased, releasing energy that was once consumed by the act of forgetting. As the afternoon waned, he discovered Emily nestled in the library, completely engrossed in her book, oblivious to his presence until he settled into the armchair next to her. Are you fond of it? He inquired. Emily gazed upward, her expression glowing with excitement. It's truly delightful. Mary seems a bit irritable at first, but I can see the reasons behind it. Ah, the secret garden. It surely holds a touch of enchantment, a rare gem waiting to be discovered. Henry remarked that Sarah often said we each possess a hidden garden within us. A cherished space where we store our most significant treasures, occasionally secured for far too long. Emily reflected on the gravity she frequently exhibited, reminiscent of how one's heart felt confined after her passing. Henry was taken aback by the straightforwardness of her question. That was precisely it. His heart had transformed into a sealed sanctuary following Sarah's passing, and he had discarded the key, believing it was the wisest choice. He conceded as much. What led you to that conclusion? Emily shrugged, embodying the straightforwardness of youthful reasoning. You appeared to carry a heaviness when we first arrived, not in an overtly emotional way, but a quiet sorrow within. My mother was in that state after my father died, and it continued until, unfortunately, she passed away as well. A moment of silence enveloped them, a quiet recognition of two distinct yet parallel losses that forged a connection of understanding between them. Henry finally spoke, I believe Sarah would have appreciated you. Emily's face radiated joy, as if she had just been given the highest praise imaginable. In the days that ensued, Henry began to weave Emily into the fabric of his daily life with greater intention. At breakfast, he would break down and clarify some of the projects he was engaged in. Emily absorbed every word, posing remarkably perceptive questions for someone so young. What's the reasoning behind purchasing that factory if it isn't generating profit? She inquired after Henry brought up a recent acquisition. Sometimes, the true worth of something lies not in its current state, but in its potential for transformation, he explained. The factory boasts skilled workers and quality equipment, yet suffers from ineffective management. By implementing the appropriate adjustments, it has the potential to yield significant productivity. Emily nodded, taking in the details with thoughtful consideration. Just like Noah and I. When you discovered us, we weren't lucrative. She articulated the word with precision, distinctly echoing a term she had encountered. Yet you recognized that improvement was possible with assistance. The comparison took him by surprise. That's not quite how it is, Emily. Individuals are not enterprises. Isn't the underlying principle the same? She continued on her path. Putting your faith in an idea or a person, recognizing their promise even when the rest of the world remains skeptical. Henry gazed at her, a fresh sense of admiration in his eyes. Indeed, you are correct. In a sense, it's a comparable concept. In the afternoons, following the homeschooling he had organized for Emily, they frequently found themselves in the library together. He presented her with maps of the places he had explored, clarified fundamental business ideas with straightforward illustrations, and occasionally sat quietly as she read aloud, her pronunciation enhancing with each passing day. What factors influence your decision-making process when determining the appropriate course of action? She inquired a single time. Upon sharing a business dilemma he was grappling with, Henry reflected on it deeply. I typically examine all options and select the one that offers the most favorable long-term result. How can you determine which option is the most suitable? In the realm of commerce, it often comes down to the individual who generates the highest returns for the organization. Emily's brow furrowed, a hint of discontent shadowing her expression. What if the decision that yields the greatest financial gain causes harm to others? Her question, with its innocent straightforwardness, struck a nerve. How often, throughout the years, had he chosen paths based solely on figures, overlooking the effects on people? Aggressive acquisitions, the shuttering of factories in small communities that relied on them for employment, and layoffs aimed at enhancing short-term financial gains. That's a remarkable inquiry, Emily, he finally responded. Honestly, I haven't consistently made the wisest decisions in that area. A genuinely sound choice must take into account not only the financial gains but also the individuals impacted by it. Emily beamed, pleased by his candor. My mother often reminded me that before we make a choice, we should consider whether we would feel proud to share it with someone dear to us. Henry experienced a sharp ache in his chest. How many of his previous choices would withstand that scrutiny? How many would he feel honored to share with Sarah, if she were still here? In that moment, he came to understand something remarkable. Emily was not merely a student in his eyes, he found himself gaining insights from her as well. Her straightforward yet deep inquiries prompted him to reevaluate the beliefs and habits he had assumed were unchangeable for years. As night fell and he gently tucked her in, a fresh ritual unfolded that both of them embraced. Emily frequently opened up about her thoughts and concerns from the day, placing her trust in him like no one had in ages. Will my daisies make it through the winter, do you think? One night, she inquired after seeing the weather forecast predict a cold snap. He reassured her that daisies are resilient blooms, but if needed, we can construct a small shelter to safeguard them. Emily appeared to breathe a sigh of relief at the response. As he stood to depart, she grasped his hand. Thank you for allowing us to stay, she expressed with a heartfelt sincerity that tugged at his heartstrings. I sought solace each night for Noah's safety, and then we discovered you. Henry experienced a tightness in his throat. I suppose I might have needed to discover you as well, he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. Later, in his office, Henry gazed at Sarah's portrait, which adorned his desk, a photo he had unearthed from the trunk in the attic. Beside it was Emily's artwork, featuring stick figures beneath the title Our Family. For the first time, he permitted himself to envision the future, not solely through the lens of business and acquisitions, but also in relation to people, Emily and Noah. The visions he could craft for them, the safety he could ensure, the bond they could forge as a family. The idea still filled him with fear. Embracing love also meant embracing the possibility of loss and heartache. It signified opening oneself up once more. As he gazed at the two images juxtaposed, the sister he had lost and the children that fate had unexpectedly delivered to him, Henry started to entertain the thought that perhaps, just perhaps, embracing that risk was worthwhile. As autumn settled in, the garden of Callaway Mansion transformed into a tapestry of red and gold hues. Emily's daisies had finished their cycle, but in their stead, Henry assisted her in planting tulip bulbs, destined to blossom in the spring. It's a leap of trust, he articulated, as they nestled the bulbs into the moist earth. We sow them now, without witnessing any instant outcome. Believing that something lovely will flourish in the months to come. Emily embraced that lesson with the same gravity she applied to all of Henry's teachings. It's akin to putting your money into a business that hasn't turned a profit just yet. Henry beamed with delight. In a matter of months, she had learned more about business than numerous interns who had come and gone in his company. Precisely in that manner. Life in the mansion had found an unexpectedly harmonious rhythm. The day commenced with a shared breakfast among family, succeeded by educational sessions led by the tutor that Henry had engaged for Emily. Afternoons frequently unfolded with shared pursuits, whether it was tending to the garden, immersing ourselves in books in the library, or engaging in brief discussions where Henry would outline a straightforward project he was developing. Noah, now nearly 2, was becoming quite the chatterbox and adored trailing after Henry throughout the house. His ability to mimic Henry's gestures with such hilarious accuracy brought smiles to even the most serious staff members. It was a pure delight that Henry never thought he would feel again, something that couldn't be quantified in currency or investments, yet it somehow filled a gap he hadn't realized existed. On a Thursday morning, that tranquility was suddenly interrupted by an unforeseen guest. "Richard Matthews is here to see you, sir," Wilson declared, entering the office where Henry was engrossed in reviewing contracts. Henry lifted his brows in astonishment. Richard, his previous business associate and sometimes advisor, seldom showed up without a scheduled meeting. "Let him come in." Richard Matthews stepped in with the assuredness of someone who knew the environment intimately. He stood tall, his gray hair impeccably trimmed, dressed in a suit that likely cost more than the annual earnings of most. He embodied the essence of Henry's bygone corporate era. "Henry, my old friend," he said warmly, reaching out to shake his hand. "I apologize for the unexpected visit, but I happened to be nearby and wanted to take the opportunity to talk about the Westfield Industries proposal in person." "Absolutely, Richard, please take a seat." Henry gestured toward the armchair positioned opposite his desk. "A cup of coffee." "Scotch would be preferable, assuming it's not too early for you," Richard remarked, a knowing grin spreading across his face. Just as Henry was about to request Wilson to fetch their drinks, the echo of hurried footsteps and the joyful sounds of children's laughter filled the hallway. Just as he was about to respond, the office door flew open, and Emily rushed in, tightly holding a drawing. "Henry, check out what I created in class." She halted suddenly upon seeing the visitor, her previously animated demeanor giving way to a sense of bashfulness. "Apologies, I wasn't aware you were entertaining guests." Richard gazed at the girl, his surprise unmistakable, then shifted his attention to Henry, arching an eyebrow in unspoken inquiry. "It's all right, Emily," Henry comforted her. "This is Mr. Matthews, a colleague in the business realm." "Hey Richard, it's Emily." Emily, regaining her poise, reached out her hand as she had been taught. "Pleased to make your acquaintance, Mr. Matthews." Richard extended his hand with courtesy, yet his gaze betrayed a lingering perplexity. "The pleasure is all mine, Emily. Are you here as a guest from afar?" Just as Henry was about to respond, Noah burst into the room, with Mrs. Parker trailing behind, looking a bit winded from her efforts to keep pace with the kids. "My sincerest apologies, Mr. Calloway," the housekeeper exclaimed with urgency. They quietly departed while the tutor took a moment to rest. "It's perfectly fine, Mrs. Parker," Henry said, observing the growing confusion on Richard's face. "Emily, why don't you and Noah share your new drawing with Mrs. Parker while I have a conversation with Mr. Matthews? Feel free to share it with me later." Emily nodded, her expression tinged with disappointment, yet she seemed to grasp the situation. "Let's go, Noah. It's essential that we allow Henry to focus on his work." She grasped her brother's hand and exited the office, casting one last, inquisitive look at the visitor. As the door clicked shut, Richard released a brief, astonished chuckle. "Henry, when did anyone start using your first name, and who are these kids? You can't be serious. Did you really get married without me knowing?" Henry filled 2 glasses with scotch from a bottle stored in the office cupboard. "It's quite an elaborate tale, Richard." "I'm all ears," his friend said, leaning back in the chair. "I must admit, I'm utterly captivated." The Henry Calloway I know has little patience for adults, much less for children. Henry sat, contemplating the starting point of his thoughts. Richard was among the select few aware of Sarah, having crossed paths with Henry soon after the tragedy, as they both embarked on their professional journeys. "They are without parents," he finally stated. "They arrived at my doorstep amidst the fierce storm a few months back. A young girl sought employment to provide for her brother's needs." Richard nodded thoughtfully, absorbing the details. "So, you welcomed them in? I suppose it's just for the time being." Henry acknowledged that was the original intention. However, events unfolded in surprising manners. "What type of progress are we discussing, Henry?" Richard's tone had shifted to a careful professionalism, reminiscent of how he approached conversations about uncertain new ventures. Henry inhaled deeply, aware that this was the moment he would finally articulate the thoughts that had occupied his mind for weeks. "I am considering pursuing legal custody of them." Richard almost sputtered on his beverage. "What did you say?" He let out a cough. "Have you completely lost your senses?" "I understand it may appear unusual," Henry started. "Unusual?" Richard placed his glass down with a force that was more than what the moment called for. "It's completely outrageous, Henry. No offense, but you don't quite seem like the nurturing type. Your life revolves around your business. It has always been that way." "Everything evolves, Richard." "Indeed, they do. Individuals like us purchase new residences, invest in innovative technology, and perhaps even tie the knot once more. We do not take in children who unexpectedly show up at our doorstep." Henry experienced a sharp pang of annoyance. "To me, they are not just random children," Richard leaned forward. His tone had shifted, becoming gentler, yet tinged with a hint of superiority. "Henry, I see that you may be facing a difficult situation, or perhaps the girl brings back memories of Sarah, but it's crucial not to let fleeting feelings dictate such a significant choice." Bringing up Sarah struck a deep chord. Richard was correct, at least in some respects. Emily indeed evoked memories of Sarah in Henry, not only in her appearance but also in her essence. Was that everything? Was his bond with these children simply a frantic effort to recapture a bygone era? He objected, saying it was more than that. Even with a voice that didn't carry the usual certainty, Richard capitalized on the moment of doubt to reinforce his argument. "Henry, what compels you to engage in this matter? They don't fall under your obligations. There exist frameworks designed to support orphans, frameworks that function effectively, particularly when backed by generous individuals like yourself. Have you noticed the state of some of these places, Richard? Some of them have their merits. There are outstanding institutions, particularly the private ones." Richard paused, studying his friend intently. "If you genuinely care about their well-being, you could readily finance their residence in one of the finest private homes available in the nation. Indeed, you could support a whole orphanage if you so desired." Henry sat in quiet contemplation, weighing his friend's words carefully. Richard had consistently served as the rational anchor in the world of business, the individual who prevented him from making hasty choices that might lead to significant financial losses. Maybe he was correct this time as well. "And don't assume this won't have an impact on your business," Richard continued. "Do you truly think your shareholders will remain composed when they find out that the individual overseeing their investments has unexpectedly chosen to embrace fatherhood with 2 children? They will scrutinize your choices, your steadiness, particularly when they discover the rashness behind this decision." "It wasn't a hasty decision," Henry protested, even as uncertainty began to creep into his mind. "They have been present for several months." "Several months?" Richard emitted a dry, humorless chuckle. "Henry, you dedicated more time to scrutinizing the acquisition of that property in Chicago than you have to this pivotal choice." He hesitated, his voice becoming gentler. "Listen, I'm not suggesting we just abandon them outside. I'm merely proposing that you seek a more appropriate resolution for all parties concerned." Once Richard departed, Henry lingered in his office for hours, enveloped in contemplation. The words of his friend reverberated in his thoughts, nurturing uncertainties that had lingered beneath the surface, yet Henry had successfully pushed aside until this moment. What if Richard had a point? What if Henry truly lacked the ability to fulfill the needs of Emily and Noah? For an extended period, his existence had been centered on commerce. He toiled for extended periods, journeyed frequently, and encountered relentless stress. What sort of atmosphere was that for nurturing kids? Perhaps a well-regarded private orphanage staffed by skilled professionals genuinely represented the most suitable choice. The children would enjoy a sense of stability, receive a quality education, and he would be able to visit them frequently, guaranteeing their financial well-being, even covering the costs of prestigious colleges when the moment arrived. Driven by a desire to uncover new opportunities, Henry requested Wilson to investigate the finest private residences in the area. 2 days later, he received a comprehensive report on St. Clara Institute, a well-respected establishment located about an hour away. Wilson remarked on the excellent facilities, displaying photographs on his tablet. Separate accommodations for older children, consistent psychological assistance, an in-house educational facility, and a variety of extracurricular options. Henry nodded, scrutinizing pictures of bright classrooms, tidy and organized bedrooms, and well-furnished play spaces. It was certainly an exceptional location. Numerous children who are not as fortunate as Emily and Noah could hardly imagine having the opportunity to experience a place like that. He resolved to arrange a visit for tomorrow. Hold off on sharing any information with the children for now. That night, Henry found himself unable to drift into slumber. He writhed in his sheets, contemplating the best way to deliver the news to Emily. What would be his way of explaining that? Even with all they had experienced together over the past few months, he was unable to become the person she envisioned. That yet another establishment, regardless of its resources, would turn into her sanctuary. The trip to St. Clara Institute lived up to the stunning images that had been shared. The director, a middle-aged woman with a warm yet professional demeanor, guided him through every facility, detailing the educational programs, the children's daily routines, and the policies regarding visits and adoption. "We seldom have openings," she clarified, "but for someone of your stature, Mr. Calloway, we can certainly accommodate an exception, particularly in light of your generous contribution." Henry nodded, attempting to brush aside the discomfort that lingered. The significant contribution he had promised was merely a small portion of what he would invest in nurturing the children, yet it felt unsettling, as if he were purchasing the security of Emily and Noah. Would the children remain united, he pondered, remembering Emily's persistent dread of being apart from her brother. Typically, we categorize them by age group, but we can certainly make an exception in light of the current situation. The girl was able to see her brother every day. While it wasn't perfect, it was certainly an improvement over having no options at all. Henry took the first steps, signing the preliminary documents that would secure his places, provided he finalized his choice within a week. As they made their way home, with the driver skillfully maneuvering along the tree-draped path, Henry gazed out the window, his mind elsewhere, oblivious to the beauty passing by. He reassured himself that his actions were justified. The children would enjoy a sense of security, receive expert attention, and have access to various opportunities. It was the logical choice, yet when have choices regarding family ever been solely about logic? In the grand mansion, he discovered Emily nestled in the library, engrossed in a story for Noah, a cherished routine of her afternoons. He lingered at the threshold, observing from the shadows. The way she patiently described the pictures to her brother, the sparkle in her eyes as she shared stories she had only recently uncovered, and the trust and security Noah exhibited by her side were all remarkable. "Henry," she exclaimed, finally noticing him, her face illuminating as it always did upon their encounters. "We delved into the fascinating world of dinosaurs. Noah has a fondness for the T-Rex, yet I find the velociraptors to be far more intriguing." Henry positioned himself beside them, a tightness coiling in his throat. "Emily, we must have a conversation." Something in his tone seemed to send a signal, as her smile disappeared in an instant. What transpired? Henry paused for a moment, then chose to speak plainly. I discovered a spot for you and Noah. A truly wonderful environment, filled with other kids, excellent educators, an abundance of books, and ample space for play. Emily remained motionless, her gaze locked on Henry, as if she were attempting to comprehend the weight of his words. A place for children without families? It's more akin to a residential school, he clarified, though he understood that the distinction held little significance. You would enjoy all the comforts and receive the finest education available. But we wouldn't remain here, she interjected, her voice soft and measured, as if fearing that revealing any emotion might exacerbate the situation. We will not remain with you. Henry assured me that he would come by frequently and ensure that I had all that I required. Emily bowed her head, her small frame appearing to diminish in front of Henry. Noah, feeling the shift in atmosphere, inched closer to his sister. Have we made a mistake? Emily finally inquired, her voice scarcely rising above a whisper. The question struck Henry with the force of a tangible impact. Absolutely not. You both have been truly amazing. So, what's the reason behind wanting to part ways with us? That's not the case, Emily, my intention is to act in your best interest. She raised her eyes, shimmering with unfallen tears. I believe that remaining here was the most beneficial choice for us. Henry sought the right expressions, those that could articulate his anxieties and uncertainties. Emily, my existence is quite intricate. I put in a great deal of effort, I explore new places, I manage various obligations. I'm uncertain if I can provide you with the focus you truly merit. But you already do, she replied plainly, more than anyone else has since our parents passed away. Additional elements come into play. Is it due to the arrival of that individual who visited us? Did he mention anything regarding us? Henry paused, taken aback by Emily's keen insight. Richard voiced a few worries. Indeed, the choice ultimately rests with me. Emily nodded slowly, a look of realization dawning on her face. I always knew we'd have to leave one day, she said, her words carrying a weight beyond her years. I wondered if perhaps you cared for us enough to allow us to remain. She rose, grasping Noah's hand. I will prepare our belongings. No need to be concerned, we don't possess a lot. The quiet grace with which Emily received the news was more heartbreaking than any explosion of emotion could have been. With her chin up, she turned and walked away, tears streaming down her face at last. Henry witnessed something that pierced his very soul. The identical expression Sarah wore when the doctors delivered the news that hope had run out. The expression of an individual who has grasped too soon the harsh realities of existence, the fragility of aspirations, and the painful absence of cherished ones. In that instant, as if struck by a sudden flash, Henry realized he was unable to go through with it. He couldn't allow himself to be yet another individual who turned his back on Emily and Noah. Another letdown in their lives, which are already filled with losses. Emily, wait, he called, standing up suddenly. She halted, pivoting gradually as if apprehensive about his forthcoming words. I've changed my mind, Henry said, approaching her and kneeling to meet her gaze. You're staying right here. This can be your sanctuary if you choose to embrace it. Emily's expression shifted gradually, a struggle between optimism and skepticism. Is that so? We won't be dismissed so easily. Indeed, he affirmed, experiencing a conviction he hadn't encountered in ages. Richard is mistaken. You are under my care now, as I have decided it to be so. You can refer to me as Henry, uncle, or whatever suits you, but this is your space. Emily released a gentle sob and, without hesitation, launched herself into Henry's embrace, clinging to him with every ounce of strength her small arms could gather. Noah, eager to be part of the moment, wrapped his small hands around Henry's shirt, joining the warm embrace. In that moment, enveloped by the warmth of the two children fate had delivered to his doorstep, Henry realized he had chosen wisely. It wasn't the simplest choice, nor the most logical according to corporate norms, but it was the only one his heart could embrace. Richard and the others would need to adjust to this new reality. For the first time in decades, Henry Calloway was making a decision rooted not in convenience or profit, but in what genuinely held significance. The family court hearing room felt cozier and more inviting than Henry had envisioned. It didn't possess the daunting gravity of the courtrooms shown in movies, featuring dark wood paneling and a stern ambience. The walls were painted in a gentle blue hue, embellished with serene landscape artwork and a scattering of potted plants nestled in the corners. Henry fidgeted with his tie for the third time in just 5 minutes. Beside him, Emily anxiously toyed with the edge of the new dress they had chosen specifically for this moment. Noah, perched on Mrs. Parker's lap a few seats back, remained blissfully unaware of the significance of the moment, engrossed in his small toy car. "Everything will be fine," Henry murmured to Emily, seeking to comfort both her and himself. She nodded, her gaze fixed on the door where the judge would make their entrance. "What happens if she declines?" "She won't," Henry said, his voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling within him. His attorney had confidently assured him that all was well, that the reports were positive, and that his financial position was a compelling point in his favor. Yet Henry remained unable to dispel the unease that clung to him. As Judge Coleman made his entrance, a hush fell over the room and all rose to their feet. She was a woman in her middle years, possessing keen eyes and a smile that radiated genuine warmth, transcending mere politeness. Once the initial procedures were completed, she fixed her gaze on Henry. "Mr. Calloway, after reviewing all the reports, I must express my admiration for the remarkable progress the children have made under your guidance. The social worker has particularly observed the supportive atmosphere you've created and the clear connection among the three of you." Henry experienced a subtle sense of relief, even as he understood that the ultimate decision was yet to be revealed. "Nonetheless," the judge proceeded, "I have a couple of inquiries for you personally, if that's all right with you." "Certainly, Your Honor." "Mr. Calloway, your profession is quite challenging, characterized by extended hours and regular journeys. What are your thoughts on balancing that with your duties as a parent?" Henry had practiced that response with his attorney, yet in that instant, he opted for sincerity instead of rehearsed lines. "I have already implemented substantial modifications, Your Honor. I've streamlined my business travel to only what's absolutely necessary. I have chosen to hand over certain responsibilities that I previously insisted on managing myself and have rearranged my schedule to ensure my presence at important moments. Honestly, these kids have transformed my life in ways I never expected, and each change I've embraced has deepened my understanding of what is genuinely important." The judge inclined his head, seemingly content with the response given. To the astonishment of all present, she turned her attention to Emily and spoke directly to her. "Emily, do you find comfort and joy in Mr. Calloway's home?" The girl adjusted her posture, a familiar gesture she adopted whenever she aimed to project an air of maturity. "Indeed, it's the first place since our parents passed away that truly evokes a sense of belonging. Does Mr. Calloway look after you and your brother well?" A subtle smile began to form on Emily's lips. "He puts in a tremendous effort. At times, he struggles with basic tasks like styling Noah's hair or selecting appropriate stories for my age, yet he adapts quickly." Her candid response drew subtle smiles across the courtroom, even from the judge. "Do you wish to remain with him? Join his family in a legal capacity?" "Above all else in the universe," Emily declared. Her voice steady, even with the clear emotion beneath. "He's already part of our family. All we require is for the documents to confirm that." The judge observed Emily intently for a brief moment, then turned her attention to the documents laid out before her. The stillness in the room felt palpable as all eyes turned to her, anticipating her choice. After reviewing all the reports, testimonies, and the clear well-being of the children, she ultimately declared her decision to grant permanent guardianship of Emily and Noah Pearson to Mr. Henry Calloway, with full adoption set to be finalized in 6 months. In accordance with established probationary protocols, she gently tapped her gavel. "Warmest congratulations to the newly formed Calloway family." With a burst of excitement, Emily leaped from her chair, exclaiming with joy as she enveloped Henry in a warm embrace. He wrapped his arms around her, consumed by a wave of emotion so powerful that it left him breathless. Mrs. Parker came forward with Noah, who was caught up in the excitement, clapping his hands and laughing joyfully. Although he lacked a complete grasp of the situation unfolding around him. Outside the courthouse, beneath the soft glow of the autumn sun, Henry paused to absorb the scene around him. As Emily confidently displayed their guardianship papers to Wilson, who stood by the car, Henry experienced an unusual blend of tranquility and exhilaration. A fresh start, an entirely new beginning. What comes next? Emily inquired as they settled into the car. Henry beamed with delight. It's time for us to head home. Our sanctuary. The subsequent weeks unfolded in a flurry of bustling events. The Calloway mansion, already altered by the children's presence, experienced even deeper transformations. One of the guest rooms was transformed into a multifunctional playroom and study area for Emily. The garden welcomed a quaint playground, built under Emily's eager watch, as she made sure to voice her thoughts on every aspect. Henry's schedule evolved to meet the demands of the new reality. He cut back on his office hours, opting to work from home whenever he could. Meetings that used to stretch into the late hours were moved to more sensible times. His priorities had shifted significantly, and to his own astonishment, he found no longing for his previous chaotic routine whatsoever. Mr. Yamamoto reached out once more regarding the property in Tokyo. One morning, as Henry enjoyed breakfast with the children, Wilson shared some news with him. Let him know we're holding firm on our initial proposal, Henry said, assisting Noah with his pancakes. If he doesn't accept by the end of the week, we will withdraw and delay the video conference with London until tomorrow. This afternoon, I made a commitment to take Emily to the dinosaur exhibit. Wilson nodded, concealing a faint smile. The latest Henry Calloway, who chose to focus on a dinosaur exhibit instead of a crucial business meeting, still managed to astonish everyone. One night, as Henry tucked Emily into bed, she remarked on how spacious their house felt. What made you choose to live here by yourself before we arrived? The inquiry took Henry by surprise. I suppose I never really considered it deeply. I acquired this property when my business began to thrive. The house appeared to be exactly what someone in my situation ought to possess. Yet, it was remarkably silent, wasn't it? And devoid. Henry paused to contemplate. Indeed, it was. It wasn't until your arrival that the truth dawned on me. Emily offered a sleepy smile. In that moment, our paths crossed perfectly. We craved tranquility while you sought the clamor. At this moment, we possess both. The pure insight of that child consistently left him in awe. Indeed, you are correct. Just like before. It's time to rest now. Tomorrow promises to be quite an eventful day. The significant occasion Henry spoke of was a gathering he had planned to formally present his new family. He reassured Emily, keeping it simple, when she felt anxious about encountering a crowd of unfamiliar faces. Only a handful of close friends and associates whom Henry deemed significant enough to partake in this pivotal moment of his life. To his astonishment, Richard Matthews was one of the earliest to show up. I wasn't sure you'd show up, Henry remarked while they poured themselves some drinks. Richard shrugged, a hint of discomfort flickering across his face. Upon reflection, I came to understand that my assessment may have been premature. The children appeared joyful, and I must confess, so do you. That was about as near to an apology as Henry could expect from Richard, and he acknowledged it with a nod. The gathering unfolded seamlessly, with Emily captivating the attendees through her wit and Noah eliciting laughter with his playful behavior. Observing their ease as they mingled with the guests in an environment that would have felt foreign just months prior, Henry was overcome with a sense of pride and thankfulness. However, it was the day following the celebration that existence nudged him with its capricious nature. We need to conduct a few more tests to confirm, Dr. Peterson stated, examining the results of Henry's routine checkup from the previous week. However, these early indicators point to a potentially significant heart issue. Henry experienced a disorienting sensation, as though the ground had vanished from under his feet. How grave. The physician adjusted his spectacles, selecting his phrases with precision. I prefer not to raise any concerns until we have a full understanding of the situation. However, if my suspicions are correct, we are facing a situation that will necessitate significant adjustments to our way of living. There may be continuous medication and assessed endures based on the progression, with potential surgical procedures down the line. Am I unwell, doctor? The inquiry slipped out with more bluntness than he had planned, yet Henry found it essential to seek the answer. Not at this moment. No, the doctor stated with conviction. With the right attention, numerous individuals facing comparable circumstances can lead productive and satisfying lives for many years. However, I must acknowledge that this situation is quite serious, Mr. Calloway. Changes are necessary. Stress, extended work hours, and an unhealthy diet cannot continue. Henry nodded numbly, arranged for the extra tests, and exited the office in a fog. In the car, rather than requesting the driver to take him to the office he had in mind, he directed him to the nearby park instead. Perched on a bench, he observed the children frolicking beneath the vigilant gaze of parents and nannies, a peculiar fear washing over him, one he had never encountered before. It wasn't solely the dread of mortality, although that was present as well. The thought of missing out on witnessing Emily's growth, of guiding Noah into manhood, weighed heavily on him, a stark reminder of the father he had vowed to be for them. He couldn't help but notice the irony. For years, he had steered clear of emotional connections, believing that bonds only resulted in suffering. Having finally embraced the possibility of love once more, he found himself facing an unexpected challenge. That evening, once the children were tucked in, Henry withdrew to his office and engaged in an activity he hadn't indulged in for quite some time. He wept. Not tears of self-pity, but tears born from frustration and a fierce resolve. He refused to allow this illness, this looming threat, to rob him of the second chance that life had bestowed upon him. With a fresh perspective at dawn, Henry set his plans into motion. Initially, a consultation with his attorney to revise his will and establish a trust fund for the kids. A comprehensive examination of his business operations to pinpoint aspects that might be delegated or reorganized. He instructed Jonathan, his most seasoned vice president, to take direct charge of the Asian operations. I would prefer Terry to take the lead on the European expansion rather than myself. Jonathan, having collaborated with Henry for almost 10 years, was unable to conceal his astonishment. This comes as a surprise. Is there a specific reason behind the shakeup? Numerous factors, Henry responded ambiguously. Primarily a reassessment of what truly matters. I need to be more present here due to my family obligations. It wasn't a fabrication, merely an incomplete rendition of reality. Henry resolved to disclose the specifics of his diagnosis only after gathering all the necessary information and formulating a treatment strategy. He aimed to avoid stirring up any undue concern, particularly for the kids. In the days that followed, as he awaited further test results, Henry dedicated himself to strategizing not just his medical treatment but also the enduring future for his family and his business. Emily, he said one afternoon while she was immersed in her homework at the library. Have you considered what you want to pursue in your future? She glanced up from her notebook, taken aback by the inquiry. I remain uncertain at this moment. Perhaps a doctor, similar to Noah's mother, or a lawyer, or maybe pursue a career in business, like you have. Henry beamed with delight. You would excel in any of those roles. Did you know I began my journey into the world of business with your grandfather when I was just a few years older than you are now? Is that so? Did you enjoy it? He acknowledged that it wasn't the case every time. It was captivating to observe how our choices can create something enduring, something that benefits many. In the days that followed, Henry started to include Emily in light-hearted conversations about his business, approaching it not with pressure or dominance, but rather as if it were an engaging learning experience. He illustrated fundamental economic ideas using relatable scenarios and explored ethical challenges by sharing narratives from his own experiences. To his astonishment and pleasure, Emily eagerly took it all in, posing questions that revealed not just her intelligence, but also a deep sense of fairness and duty. If the factory were to shut down in an effort to cut costs, what would become of the employees who rely on it for their livelihoods? After Henry outlined a hypothetical restructuring scenario, she inquired once. He responded candidly that they would likely face job loss. Emily scowled. Is that truly just? They acted without fault. Henry explained that we can't always base our decisions solely on what is fair for individuals. At times, we must consider the broader implications for the collective well-being. Yet, as he uttered those words, Henry became acutely aware of their emptiness. How often had he invoked the notion of the greater good to rationalize choices that fundamentally favored profit over the well-being of individuals? Emily, with her straightforward yet deep viewpoint, prompted him to reconsider beliefs he'd held as undeniable truths throughout his entire career. Upon receiving the complete diagnosis, which revealed a serious yet manageable heart condition necessitating ongoing medication, frequent checkups, and, most importantly, a significant decrease in stress, Henry had already begun to reshape both his personal life and his business strategy. During the board meeting, he declared his intention to establish a retirement plan for employees at all factories we acquire, leaving everyone astonished, along with an education fund for the children of employees at every level of the company. The CFO cautioned that this will significantly affect next quarter's profits, but Henry argued it will positively influence loyalty, productivity, and our long-term reputation. Moreover, that's the type of organization I aspire to establish as my enduring contribution. The term legacy had evolved into something entirely different for him. It transcended the mere legacy of structures adorned with his name or the accumulation of wealth. It was about the legacy he created in the world, the principles he instilled in Emily and Noah, the model he provided for them. At home, transformations persisted. Henry engaged a chef renowned for crafting nutritious dishes, started swimming with the kids as a form of exercise, and set consistent hours for both work and relaxation. The mansion, previously consumed by his relentless pursuits, now embraced evenings filled with board games, shared moments of reading, and weekends dedicated to discovering parks, museums, and other sights the children had yet to experience. You appear to have changed. One evening, as Henry assisted her with a science project, Emily made a remark. In what way is it different? With a hint of levity, she responded, seeking the perfect term. As if you released a burden that weighed you down. Henry pondered her insightful remark. It was indeed true. In spite of the troubling diagnosis, he experienced a sense of relief. The apprehension lingered, the worry about what lies ahead, yet there emerged a fresh perspective and a profound gratitude for the now. I believe I've come to understand that I've been holding on to things that no longer serve me. At last, he spoke. What truly holds significance is present in this moment. That night, as he lay in his bed, Henry pondered the remarkable journey of the past few months. He transformed from a solitary figure, consumed by his career and shrouded in sorrow, into a father, a guide, someone uncovering the essence of family and bonds. The future was shrouded in ambiguity. His heart condition hung over him like a shadow on the horizon. For the first time in decades, Henry felt a sense of anticipation for tomorrow. Now, he possessed a purpose that transcended mere contracts and acquisitions. He possessed Emily and Noah, an opportunity for redemption, a mission beyond his own existence. His mansion, once a desolate and quiet place reminiscent of a tomb for unfulfilled dreams, now resonated with laughter, music, the sporadic debate over which film to view, and the pitter-patter of small feet racing through the corridors. It was a sanctuary. Finally, there was Henry. Returned home. 7 years had gone by since that tempestuous evening when two young souls rapped on the door of the Calloway estate. Emily had just celebrated her 16th birthday the previous month. She had transformed from the timid little girl Henry had first encountered into a self-assured teenager, her eyes reflecting a determination that had been sharpened by knowledge and experience. Noah, at the age of 9, brimmed with energy and curiosity, showcasing a remarkable aptitude for both math and science. Although he couldn't recall anything from before his time at the Callaway mansion, stories of his arrival lingered in his mind, depicting a stormy night when he was cradled in his sister's embrace. Henry observed them both with a sense of pride. His hair had turned nearly entirely gray, and the creases on his face had grown more pronounced. His heart condition, while managed, had undeniably left its imprint. He progressed at a more measured pace, yet his eyes sparkled with a clarity absent from the hurried executive he had previously been. On that Saturday morning, Henry stepped into his home office and discovered Emily already seated at his desk, poring over spreadsheets on the computer. As he poured himself a cup of coffee, he inquired about the early hours. Emily glanced up, a smile spreading across her face as she reviewed the reports from the Asian division. It appears that there are some discrepancies in the figures for the third quarter. Henry lifted his brows in surprise. What type of discrepancies are we discussing? Emily adjusted the monitor for his view. Take a look at this. Operating expenses surged nearly 20% in comparison to the same period last year. Lacking a definitive rationale. Upon reviewing the production data, the margins appear even more peculiar. Henry examined the figures, captivated not just by her keen observation, but by the richness of her analysis. He nodded in complete agreement. I will arrange for a comprehensive audit first thing on Monday. Emily nodded and continued to type away. I've been reflecting on the expansion project in South America as well. I came across a local nonprofit that provides technical training for disadvantaged young people. We could collaborate with them on workforce development, establishing a talent pipeline and simultaneously benefiting the region. Henry watched her, recognizing the effortless way she integrated social factors into her business choices, a skill he had only started to appreciate after many years. What a fantastic idea, Emily. Could you create a presentation for the upcoming board meeting? This project could benefit from your leadership. Her expression brightened. Are you truly allowing me to present? I won't just let you, I insist, Henry declared. Emily, I believe it's time we made your role in the company official. Could you clarify what you mean? I'm thinking about establishing a role for you, perhaps as Director of Social Innovation on a part-time basis. This way, it won't conflict with your studies, yet it will provide you with official insight into the company's operations. Emily paused to reflect. But won't some directors perceive it as favoritism, believing I'm only in this position because I'm your daughter? Henry beamed with delight. Initially, some may doubt, but your craft will ultimately shine through. In a family-operated venture, it's quite typical for the younger generation to engage from an early stage. The upcoming generation, Emily mused contemplatively. Are you hoping I might take over the company in the future? I want you to have the choice, he responded sincerely. If that is your decision, then yes, I am getting you ready to ultimately take the helm of the Callaway Group. However, should you choose a different path, I will honor that decision. Emily rose from her seat and approached the window, observing Noah as he engaged with his new telescope in the garden. I always believed this was what I wanted, she finally admitted. Since I discovered your work, I've been captivated by it. However, in recent years, as I delve deeper into the company, I increasingly recognize its potential that transcends mere profit, the influence we can exert, and the transformations we can initiate. And that drives you away from the desire to take charge. On the contrary, she remarked, pivoting to look at him once more. It intensifies my desire, but not merely to carry on what you created. I aspire to elevate it into something grander. In the upcoming weeks, Henry revealed the establishment of a new division within the company, focusing on social innovation and sustainable development, to be overseen by Emily under his direct guidance. The board's response was varied. Several seasoned leaders expressed apprehensions regarding Emily's age and lack of experience. Some embraced the concept, viewing it as a chance to innovate. Emily's inaugural initiative involved collaborating with nonprofit organizations in South America to offer technical training for at-risk youth. Her presentation to the board was impeccable, featuring accurate data, realistic projections, and a comprehensive risk-benefit analysis. The initiative will not only cultivate a talented workforce for our local endeavors, she elaborated. This will change the company's connection with the communities we serve, evolving from a simple resource extractor to a collaborator in regional growth. The project received unanimous approval, leaving even the doubters impressed. Throughout the next 4 years, Emily's engagement with the company flourished, harmoniously intertwined with her academic responsibilities. She completed her college education with distinction and formally assumed the position of Vice President of Strategy and Sustainable Development. The training program she launched in South America achieved remarkable success, setting a benchmark for similar efforts in various other areas. Under her guidance, the Social Innovation Division transformed from a simple obligation into a vital strategic element of the business. In the meantime, Noah flourished on his unique journey. His curiosity about science transformed into a dedicated enthusiasm for environmental technology. At 15, he created an innovative water filtration project aimed at helping communities with inadequate sanitation, earning international acclaim. At the age of 25, Emily had established herself as a prominent presence in the business world, known not only as Henry Callaway's daughter but also as a skilled executive in her own right. At this juncture, with Henry reaching the age of 70, he began to contemplate the prospect of retirement with earnestness. His heart condition, while stable, served as a persistent reminder of his own mortality. What mattered most to him was the profound sense of fulfillment he derived from his accomplishments, not merely in the realm of financial success, but primarily in the family he had nurtured. On a bright spring morning, he summoned Emily to his office. He announced that he is considering stepping down as president. Emily glanced upward, taken aback. "Is your heart deteriorating?" "No, it's stable, yet I believe the moment has arrived. The organization stands at a pinnacle in its history, presenting a perfect opportunity for a shift." "Who are you thinking of as your successor?" she inquired, even though she had an inkling of what the response would be. Henry beamed with delight. "Naturally, for you. Who might it be, if not them?" Despite her expectations, Emily appeared momentarily at a loss for words. "Henry, Is that really what you mean? I feel rather inexperienced to lead a group of this magnitude." "The stakeholders." He spoke softly, expressing that the shareholders are quite satisfied with the outcomes of your initiatives. Your expertise, creativity, and, most crucially, your foresight position you perfectly to elevate the company to new heights. If I agree, will I have the liberty to implement substantial changes, even if they encounter some initial pushback? Complete liberation, Henry promised her. If you'd like a safety net, I can maintain a seat on the board, but the path forward will be yours to determine. Emily stopped before Sarah's portrait, now proudly displayed in a prominent spot on the office wall. "I agree," she said at last, "but only if one condition is met." "Give it a title." "I wish to establish a foundation in your sister's honor. The Sarah Callaway Foundation dedicated to safeguarding children. It will assist children facing circumstances akin to those that Noah and I experienced." Henry experienced a tightness in his throat. I think she would have truly appreciated that. The formal declaration emerged during a remarkable board meeting and, as anticipated, created quite a buzz. Numerous financial news outlets emphasized Emily's age and raised doubts about the soundness of the decision. Certain analysts forecasted a decline in the company's stock. The transition ceremony was set for the company's 50th anniversary, a magnificent event graced by business leaders, politicians, and notable social figures. As the ceremony approached, Henry discovered Emily in the library, immersed in her speech preparation. With a hint of anxiety, he inquired. She conceded slightly. "It's not the ceremony that matters, but the weight of the responsibility. I hope to meet your expectations, Henry." He gently covered her hand with his. "Emily, you have always exceeded my expectations. From the instant you rapped on my door during that tempestuous night, all you've bestowed upon me is a sense of pride." She smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "At times, I find myself pondering the outcome had you simply shut the door," had you taken the path that many would choose? I ponder that too, Henry responded gently, and I express my gratitude to fate daily for my decision. The grand occasion arrived with a radiant sunrise. The main auditorium at Callaway Group headquarters brimmed with journalists, each strategically placed to document this momentous occasion. Henry stepped onto the stage, ready to deliver his farewell address. He touched on the company's journey, expressed gratitude to partners and employees, and then got to the crux of the issue. Numerous individuals have inquired about my decision to select Emily as my successor. Some doubt her age. Some people presume favoritism. The reality is both more straightforward and more profound. I selected Emily because she embodies the pinnacle of what this organization strives to achieve, transcending mere profit generation to become a significant catalyst for positive transformation in the world. He took a moment, his gaze landing on Noah in the front row, now 18 and beaming with encouragement. As I take my leave, the Callaway Group's prosperity has reached unprecedented heights. Yet, throughout these years, I've come to realize that my genuine riches have never resided in balance sheets or real estate. It resides within the family I've created, the lives I've influenced, and the cherished experiences that are beyond any monetary value. Emily ascended the stage, greeted by a wave of resounding applause. She appeared composed in a navy blue suit, her brown hair elegantly swept back in a simple style. She embraced Henry tightly before stepping up to the microphone. Her address was succinct and impactful. She articulated a compelling vision for the future that intertwines economic growth with social impact, blending innovative strategies with core human values. She discussed the upcoming launch of the Sarah Callaway Foundation, set to debut across 3 continents to support vulnerable children. Then she delved into the personal aspect. Many of you are unaware that my path with the Callaway Group started in a rather unexpected manner, she expressed, her voice quivering with feeling. On a tempestuous evening, my brother and I rapped on Henry Callaway's door. 2 forlorn orphans seeking a path to endure. A soft whisper flowed among the crowd. This segment of the family's narrative was privy to only a chosen few. Henry had the option to follow the path that many would take, offering a small sum and shutting the door behind him. Yet, he offered us a place to belong. Beyond that, he provided me with a vision of what lies ahead. He imparted lessons not just in business, but also in responsibility, compassion, and the profound impact we can have on the lives of others. She gazed intently at Henry, stirring within him a blend of pride and deep emotion. Today, as I embrace this role, I vow to uphold my commitment. The Callaway Group will transcend the boundaries of a mere successful company. This will serve as a prime illustration of how commerce can and should act as a catalyst for societal change. Through my experiences with Henry, I've come to understand that the real worth of an individual or an organization lies not in what it amasses, but in what it gives away. The crowd erupted in thunderous applause as Henry stepped back onto the stage alongside Emily for the official photo commemorating the transition. The instant he ceremoniously passed the keys to the company was immortalized by numerous cameras and would adorn the front pages of newspapers and magazines the following day. Following the official ceremony, an exquisite reception took place in the gardens of the corporate headquarters. Exhausted by the pretense, Henry settled into a secluded spot to observe Emily engaging with the distinguished attendees. Noah discovered him standing there, holding 2 glasses of juice. The young man remarked that Emily is doing wonderfully. Indeed, she has always had a remarkable ability to captivate an audience, Henry remarked with a grin. How about you? What are your thoughts on all these transformations? Noah gave a slight shrug. It's oddly delightful. Emily was destined for this, and you truly deserve a moment of respite. Henry let out a gentle laugh. Pause. I'm uncertain if I possess the knowledge to do so. As the evening wore on and the majority of the guests had departed, Henry found himself wandering alone through the mansion's garden. The daisies Emily had planted on that first day had flourished, filling the flower beds with their lively presence, strong and colorful, much like the girl who had selected them. There you are, he heard Emily's voice call out to him. She removed her high heels and strolled barefoot over the grass, a habit she had cherished since childhood. He mentioned he was simply stepping outside for some fresh air. What a remarkable ceremony. It was flawless, she responded, pausing next to him. Noah approached, a small box in his hands. Noah remarked, "We nearly overlooked this," as he passed the package to Henry. Within lay a silver plaque bearing an inscription for Henry Calloway, a man who never shut the door. With everlasting affection, Emily and Noah. Henry's eyes brimmed with tears. Emily stepped nearer and wrapped her arms around him. "I appreciate you keeping that door open," she murmured softly into his ear. Henry experienced a constriction in his chest, distinct from the twinges his heart condition occasionally brought on. This was the essence of complete satisfaction, a profound appreciation for the way life had unfolded. The drenched little girl who had once knocked on his door, holding an old rag and safeguarding a baby, had transformed into a formidable young woman poised to command an empire. The once trembling infant had transformed into a remarkable young man, poised for a future without bounds. He who once believed his existence was defined by contracts, acquisitions, and financial statements, came to realize that genuine wealth was never found in business, but rather in the love and human connections he encountered when he least anticipated it. "I believe it's I who should express my gratitude," Henry responded, gripping firmly the two young individuals who had become the focal point of his existence. "Your generosity has far exceeded anything I could ever hope to repay." As he observed the sun dip below the horizon of the garden, with Emily and Noah beside him, Henry experienced a tranquility he had long pursued, yet had never realized he was searching for. The circle was complete, his legacy assured, and the journey, while unlike anything he had ever envisioned, had proven to be far more enriching and significant than his grandest aspirations. That tempestuous evening had delivered more than just two vulnerable youngsters to his threshold. It offered him a new opportunity, a journey towards atonement, and the most profound insight Henry Calloway would ever grasp. True achievement is not defined by what you acquire, but by what you offer, not by what you hoard, but by what you contribute, not by the barriers you construct, but by the entrances you maintain.